This is the book of First Thessalonians, chapter 5, verse 3. And it reads, "For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden disgrace shall come upon them as a travail upon a woman with a child, and shall not escape." Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praises and glory and honor to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Karkadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of great millstone, pushing this word truthfully and sincerely. And shalom to the Akim, scattered through the four corners of the globe, pushing the word truthfully and sincerely. And shalom to the Akim, that be like unto the speckled bird, pushing the word truthfully and sincerely. And this is from an editor of regarding the recent situation in the Middle East between the Palestinians and the Israelis, with the increase of nation rising against nation between these two different nations over the Middle East, in the Middle East, Salakia itself. And highlight of this news article, and it reads, was published, by Jerusalem Post editor, and published on August 15, 2022, now updated at August 16th, 2022 from the Jerusalem Post. And the highlight of this article, and it reads from the Jerusalem Post, and it says, the Palestinian responds to terror on Israeli shows why peace is impossible. That's why I brought that First Thessalonians 5 and 3. For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden disgrace come upon them. And that's what you've seen with this long-standing clashes between Palestinian and the Israeli. The history been going back itself for a very long time between the nations over the land, over the Holy Land, with the Gaza Strip, Palestinian territory, Tel Aviv, and all the parts of Israel, And with the news article, it says, unfortunately, there have been cases of JEWISTERRORISM, but to compare the numbers to Palestinian TIRRORISTS is a outlashing, and it's ridiculous. A Nation said John F. Kennedy in October 1963, just a month before was assassinated, reveals itself not only by the men it produces, but also the men it honors and the men it remembers. It says how true not only nations, but also different societies will segment with these within those societies. Whom do they honor, or whom they lionize? So much can be learned about the people by understanding who their heroes are, or their heroes, celebrities, or scientists, athletes, or teachers, or multi-billionaires, or social workers. It says it is the Jerusalem Post led headlines on Monday was so terrible, troubling, and dispensably dispersing. The Palestinian TERRO groups applaud Jerusalem attacks, call for more heroic operations. The Palestinian TERRORIST goes on a shooting spree in the middle of a night in Jerusalem, wounding 8 innocent people, including a critically wounding an American JWIHS woman in her 26th week of pregnancy, who is shot in the stomach. And reaction of a segment of Palestinian society is the term of Operation Heroic, thereby coordinating a hero. those well-meaning people around the world who can understand why the Israeli and Palestinians just can't find a way to solve their problems. And moving on are already needed to look to no further than headlines understanding. So I wasn't gonna read all the rest of that, but it shows you what the First Thessalonians 5:3. For when they shall say peace and safety, sudden destruction come upon them. And these two different nations of races of people been having this long conflict for a very long time, and it's still continuing on still to this day. Even if they try to find solutions to come with the peace treaty or a ceasefire, but it continues to increase with the violence of between the two different nations. And that's why you're seeing Matthews 24:7, nation rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom, as I bring that out as well too. Let's see. This is the book of Matthew, chapter 24, verse 7. For nation shall rise against nations, and kingdom against kingdoms, and there shall be famines and pestilence and earthquakes in diverse places, right? Nation rising against nations, and that's what goes on to the news article that I'm reading. Because you're gonna still, you're still gonna see the continual increase of the Palestinians and the Israelis continuing conflict with one another, even though they've been conflicting with one another for a very long time. Over there in the Middle East, in Israel, of the Palestinian territory, and over there in Lebanon, the cross borders between the Golan Heights and the Syrian border and Israel border as well too, along with Hezbollah versus Israel, the IDF soldiers continue to increase, even though they had like a momentarily ceasefire. I believe the ceasefire lasts about like close to 2 weeks now, but you still had like isolated situations ongoing between the conflict between the Israelis and Palestinians as well too, as they continues to infiltrate and destroy the organization groups, which the Israeli call is bad from the Palestinian territory, as they try to neutralize them, destroy their property, and destroy their area where they located at, as they do these military raids and military raid operations in Palestinian territories, like the Gaza Strip, the West Bank, and the Palestinian territories. So the Palestinians, some of them just like resist, and then they fight. They fight back and take matters into their own hand, because they believe they're, still feeling oppressed by the Israelis. How the way they treat innocent women, children, and the kids, and the men, and the elderly as well too. You know, as they try to take over their little territory of what they have. They already mess up the Gaza Strip as well too. So as I was reading that article, so peace between the two is definitely not impossible. You know, because it's not gonna happen, because it wasn't meant for that way. Because both sides, even if they come with a momentarily ceasefire, but it's gonna be broken. The ceasefire and the trust agreement between the two sides to come to ease tensions down. But sometimes, time after time again, the ceasefire and the trust, it definitely just be broken. That's why these two nations definitely can't get along with each other. So That's why I brought out the scripture of 1 Thessalonians 5:3. For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden discretion come upon them. Then I brought out the scripture, Matthews 24:7. Nations shall rise against nations, kingdom as usual, as I bring out the scripture, if you know what I mean. So yeah, between these two groups, these two different nations of people, these different nations, between the Palestinians and the Israelis, there's never, even though it's an old saying, never say never. But in this case, Palestinians and Israelis, they're not, not not 100% likely they will ever get along with each other. You know, even if they come with ceasefire agreements, peace treaty agreements, they just cannot get along with each other. Both sides cannot get along with each other as they fight for the Holy Land, as they fight for land rights on both sides. So it's never going to be no peace in that land. That's why I brought out Matthews 24:7. Nations rising against nations, kingdom against kingdoms. So, you know, talking about peace between these both sides is highly 100% unlikely. Even then, you bring in a third party like Egypt, the president of Egypt, to bring in ceasefire negotiations, which they did after the attacks between Palestinian and the Israelis. The jihad, Islamic jihad versus the Israelis, with those recent attacks and stuff like that. So even if you bring in a third party of the president of Egypt, to calm the ease tensions down, but most likely you're gonna see the tensions gonna increase and rise back up because there's so much hostility and anger towards on both sides. Really, from the Palestinian sides, because they really can't stand this Israelis. They definitely cannot get along with them. As they try to occupy the Palestinian territory, parts of the Gaza Strip, and the checkpoints between Tel Aviv and Palestine as well too. So there's no these two getting along with each other. So hey, so it is what it is in that situation. That's why you're gonna see the continual increase the animosity and hostility towards these two nations. Because it says it says according to the Holy Scriptures, you're gonna have in the last days these nations rising against nations and kingdom against different kingdoms as well too, and spirits that are created for vengeance, which is Ecclesiastes 39:28. In the modern day Palestinians is the Ishmaelites, which is Ishmael, because Ishmael is the son of Abraham. Because like the scripture says, I believe it's in the book of Genesis, the third chapter, I believe, was saying Ishmael is going to be a wild man. And that's what we seen. So the Ishmaelites are not going to get along with the Israelis. Because you had the Israelis, they're a mixture of group. A lot of them Japhites, a lot of them Edomite Turkish people, because they mixed in, and a lot of them might be Arabic, a lot of Israeli Arabic as well too. So on the Israeli side, you got a mixture of race, and then you got the Arabs. They're a mixture of race as well too. But as far as these two nations getting along with each other is highly unlikely. That's why it says the Palestinian responds to the terror on Israeli shows why peace is impossible. Yeah, that's true. That's why I brought out, as I mentioned before, the First Thessalonians 5:3. For when they shall say peace and safety, sudden destruction come upon them. So that shows you more and more indications that these two groups will never get along with each other. These two different nations will never get along with each other. It's just more division, more clashes, you know. They just won't ever get along with each other. It wasn't meant to be for them to ever get along with each other. And it's going to be like that for a very long time, you know. It doesn't matter how many ceasefire agreements, peace, trust agreements, a two-state solution. Even if you try to come with that, it's still not gonna happen. Still not gonna work out because both sides cannot get along with each other, you know. So with that, I hope this lesson was edifying through the spirit, power, grace, and mercy of Yahweh Yahushua. And first and foremost, I'd like to give all praises and glory and honor to Yahweh Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai Ba'ashem, Wakakadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, preaching the word truthfully and sincerely. And shalom to Akim, scattered through the four corners of the globe, preaching the word truthfully and sincerely. And shalom to Akim, that be like unto a speckled bird, preaching the word truthfully and sincerely. And until next time, I will say shalom and a ball.